Let's talk about dandruff. Those white flakes that just get everywhere. My brother is one of these people, and every time I walk by him, I feel like I have to brush his shoulders off because he has white flakes all over his clothes. Let's talk about what it is, what causes it, things to do to try to avoid it, and best treatment options. I'm Dr. Hannah Kopelman. I'm here to help you achieve flawless and beautiful skin. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And I think this is a really good video to share with all your friends because dandruff is so ridiculously common. So let me explain what dandruff is. Dandruff is a very common scalp condition that occurs on your scalp and your hair, and it causes flakes of skin to appear. Now, you might hear this term seborrheic dermatitis. Usually it's used interchangeably with dandruff. And dandruff and seborrheic dermatitis are very similar in nature. What seborrheic dermatitis is it's just like the next degree of dandruff. It's a little more extreme. And if you start to notice that you have this flakiness or dryness in other parts of your body, like your eyebrows are very common. Actually, very common area is inside your ears. Believe it or not, this is very often misdiagnosed as an outer ear infection and in the T-zone. So that's the forehead, down your nose, towards your chin, even around the lip area. So these are all very common areas that you can see seborrheic dermatitis. Seborrheic dermatitis, as I said, it's a little more extreme than dandruff, so usually it will cause more symptoms like itchiness or redness and usually just like more greasy scales. So like I said, seborrheic dermatitis can be itchy and uncomfortable, but don't worry, it is not contagious, it doesn't spread from one person to another, and it's not harmful. You may have noticed actually if you're someone with a baby that they had something called cradle cap, and this is when they have like thick, greasy flakes that are usually yellowish or brown that cover their entire scalp. As I said, it's called cradle cap, and this is just another form of seborrheic dermatitis. If you're sitting there wondering whether you're someone with dandruff, it's pretty easy to figure out. Just go look in the mirror, go like this. You'll probably notice a little white few flakes around the shaft of your hair. You probably have dandruff. It's really common, so don't feel bad about it. However, I do also want to mention that there's a lot of overlap between dandruff and other medical conditions and skin conditions. Specifically, the one I want to mention today is called psoriasis, and psoriasis just localized to the scalp, which I'm referring to today. And I'm going to go into detail about scalp psoriasis in an upcoming video, so stay tuned. But a few differences to note between scalp psoriasis and dandruff is the flake or the scale that you'll see with psoriasis is usually thicker. It usually peels off in layers, usually has like a silvery color to it. And if you try to pick it, it usually bleeds. Sometimes it bleeds, not always. And usually your scalp is even itchier or more uncomfortable than it will be if you just have dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis. But if you're uncertain, don't forget to visit your dermatologist for a clarification of your diagnosis. So what exactly causes this annoying condition, this dandruff that everyone gets? Well, not everyone, but a lot of us. It's actually caused by an overgrowth of a yeast called Malassezia. So a lot of us actually have Malassezia or fungus that lives on our skin, but then in people who get dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis, we actually get an overgrowth of that yeast, and it kind of goes crazy and causes this flaky condition. Pretty annoying, but don't worry, there are ways to deal with it. I just do want to mention, though, that Malassezia loves oily environments. So if your hair is oily, you're a perfect candidate for dandruff. It will thrive in your hair. It will keep growing and growing and growing until you treat it. So let's get into some treatment options. The goal of treatment is to try to stop that overgrowth of yeast. So you want to buy products like the few I'm going to mention today. The first one I really recommend is called Nizoral. Nizoral contains 1% ketoconazole. So you can buy this over the counter. It's very safe to use, and it's a great way to stop that overproduction of yeast and treat your dandruff. Another option is Selsun Blue. Selsun Blue contains selenium sulfide 1%. This is a great option that you can buy over the counter that also reduces the overproduction of yeast. Another very popular option is called Head & Shoulders. Head & Shoulders contains zinc pyrithione 1%. I actually use this sometimes because I love how it smells, and also I find that it reduces the oil in my hair. Some other products that I like that I think you might enjoy and I highly recommend are Vanity Cream Free and Clear. This is a great option if you're someone with sensitive skin because it is free of irritants and doesn't have any fragrance, so it's really gentle on your scalp. Highly recommend. I also recommend Neutrogena Tea Gel Shampoo, which contains coal tar, and it helps remove those dead skin cells and reduces inflammation in the scalp. If you're someone with very thick scale and plaque in your scalp, which may be an indication that you actually have scalp psoriasis, Keralit 5 products are really suggested and recommended because it helps break away those dead skin cells and also reduces the inflammation. Now, if none of these products are working for you, you might require a prescription, in which case you need to get ketoconazole 2%. So like I mentioned, Nizoral is ketoconazole, but it's 1%. If that's not working for you, you might require the 2%. It's stronger, but it requires a prescription, but usually works very well. There are also other treatment options that require prescription, including cyclopyrox, selenium sulfide at a stronger percentage, as well as sometimes you might actually require a topical steroid. Because if you are someone with a lot of scale and a lot of inflammation and a lot of itch, you might need to shut down that inflammation just temporarily with a topical steroid, and in which case you also require a prescription. Now, as I mentioned in the very beginning of the video, seborrheic dermatitis can also occur in other areas, not just on the scalp. It can occur very frequently, like I said, in the eyebrow area, the T-zone area, and in the ears. If you're someone noticing those flakes or inflammation in those areas, then I actually recommend a combination treatment, in which case you would also need a prescription, but you would take a very mild steroid, usually like a hydrocortisone ointment or cream, and you would mix it with the ketoconazole cream. And that way you're using a steroid and the medication that can shut down the overgrowth of that yeast. You mix them together and you apply it to the places on the face, in your ears, and usually that shuts down the overgrowth and treats the areas. But you only use this for about 2 weeks because you don't want to overuse steroids because you can cause other problems like thinning of the skin and even a steroid-induced rosacea. But once you use the steroid for 2 weeks and you shut down the inflammation, then you can continue with maintenance just with the ketoconazole cream. Now, I want to teach you how to use these products correctly. First thing I recommend is actually alternating them. So don't use all of them at once because actually the yeast can get kind of used to the product or that ingredient and it might stop working. So the best way to use them is use one product twice a week, the other product once a week, and the other product another night a week. And you can mix this in with your regular shampoo and conditioner. So for instance, if I'm going to use my Head and Shoulders, I might say I'm going to use my Head and Shoulders on Monday and Thursday. And on Tuesday, I'm going to use my regular shampoo. And on Friday, I'm going to use the Nizoral shampoo. That's the best way to use them. In addition to how to alternate your products, it's really important to kind of look at these shampoos more as a scalp treatment. I wish we could rename them to scalp treatments because it's not about washing your hair. We're not trying to make your hair look all beautiful and glowing. We're trying to treat the scalp. So I'm going to show you how to do it. You take a little bit of your shampoo, whether any of the options I mentioned or the prescription, and you really massage it into your scalp. You want to get it in there, okay? Like, don't focus on getting it into your hair. Focus on getting it into the scalp. I recommend using them the following way. Before you even take a shower, get your hair and scalp a little damp. Then take that product, squirt a little bit into your hand, and massage it into your scalp. Then go do something for about 15 to 20 minutes. Now, most people think you just use this for 5, but I find that it works best if you leave it in for at least 20 minutes. It's like a leave-in scalp treatment. After 20 minutes, whether you go make yourself an egg or go brush your teeth, whatever you're doing after those 20 minutes, get in the shower, rinse out the scalp shampoo, and then you can apply your regular shampoo on top of it and your regular conditioner. I don't want you to think that you have to stop using your favorite products. I don't want you to get the wrong idea because I don't want you to spend like excessive amount of time every single night on your scalp and on your hair because really who has time for that? We have a lot going on in our lives. But if you can spend 2 nights a week just for 20 minutes, leave that product in your hair, I think you'll see a big difference in your dandruff. Now, I do see a correlation between stress and hormonal changes. So, if you're someone who notices that you're really stressed and your hair is starting to get more flakes in it, very possible. Or if you notice that your hair is starting to look more flaky or oily around the time of your menstrual cycle, this is also possible and is a cause for the flare in the condition. So, ways to kind of manage this is manage your stress as much as possible, lifestyle modifications, and the treatment options, of course, are going to be really useful for you. Also, I often get asked, like, should I avoid washing my hair frequently? Is that going to make my condition better? Like, am I drying my scalp out? What is going on? Actually, believe it or not, I suggest washing your hair as frequently as possible because it will reduce the oil in your hair and therefore that yeast that loves the oily environment won't grow as much. If you're someone that doesn't really like to use any prescriptions or over the counter products and you just kind of like to stick with those natural remedies, you can try tea tree oil or coconut oil because they will moisten the scalp and kind of keep it from getting dry. But I do think and really suggest you should use the over the counter products or the prescriptions because they'll work much better than any other option. If you have this condition, you want to avoid causing any more inflammation to your scalp. So avoid any harsh chemical products and avoid olive oil. If you're someone who also has the seborrheic dermatitis on your face, you can also use these shampoos that I mentioned as a face wash. But don't leave them for an excessive amount of time because they might cause some inflammation and redness. So you might have to try them out for like 5 or 10 minutes, leave them on your face, and then rinse them off and see how you react. But this is another great option for reducing the overgrowth of that yeast on the facial area. Something I want to mention and emphasize before we wrap up this video is that unfortunately, seborrheic dermatitis is a chronic skin condition. Many people don't like hearing this because it's frustrating and they just want it to go away overnight with one treatment. And I can't tell you that it does that. Once you have it, you're kind of stuck with it for life. Yes, it will wax and wane. And by the way, not only will you see it in your scalp, your hair, your face, but you can also see it in the beard distribution area. We have ways to treat it, which I went over today, and I hope those tips help you. But do have realistic expectations that this condition kind of sticks with you for life, but we can kind of keep it at bay and maintain it. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope I can help you maintain a flake-free scalp and face and ears and all of the above because no one wants to look like a snow globe. No one wants to walk around with white flakes on their shirts. So if there's a product I didn't mention today that works for your dandruff, leave it in the comments below. I want to know what works for you. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. See you in the next video.